Hello, and welcome to a program about things you probably wish you didn't have to think about. Look, we get it. Sometimes, after a long day of scrolling through targeted ads for weighted blankets and artisanal toothbrushes, the last thing you want is a stark reminder that the world is a rapidly warming, increasingly unequal pressure cooker of geopolitical tension. But the thing is, these problems don't take a break. They don't wait for you to achieve peak hygge before politely announcing their presence. These issues, these big, thorny, frankly terrifying issues are here, and they're not going anywhere. In fact, they're kind of our roommates now. So buckle up, because we're taking a deep dive into the top 10 global challenges we will face in the next decade. These are issues that will shape our world and require our immediate attention. Just a heads up, this might get a little real. Okay, let's start with the big one, the one that quite literally overshadows everything else: climate change. And I know you've heard it all before. The ice caps are melting, blah, blah, blah. The polar bears are sad, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, it's all true. The planet is warming at an alarming rate, and it's not just about a few degrees here and there. We're talking about more frequent and severe heat waves, droughts, floods and storms. We're talking about entire ecosystems being thrown out of whack. And for those of you who think, well, I don't live in a rainforest, so first, how dare you? Rainforests are amazing. Second, rising sea levels affect everyone, whether you live on the coast or 5 hours inland. This isn't some distant threat. It's happening right now. Next up, we have biodiversity loss, which is a fancy way of saying we're killing off everything on the planet except for, like, cockroaches and pigeons. And while I'll admit those creatures are remarkably resilient, they don't exactly make for a vibrant and diverse ecosystem. The rapid decline of plant and animal species is a massive problem, and it's not just about losing cuddly pandas or majestic elephants, although come on, those guys are awesome. We're talking about disrupting the delicate balance of nature that keeps our planet habitable. See, ecosystems are complex. They rely on a web of interconnected species, and when one thread is pulled, the whole thing can unravel. This loss of biodiversity threatens food security, clean water, and even our ability to fight disease. It's like pulling Jenga blocks out of the Tower of Life, and we all know how that usually ends. Remember when we were kids and thought the biggest problem in the world was running out of our favorite snack? Well, turns out grown-up problems are way less delicious. We are rapidly depleting our planet's finite resources. Fresh water, minerals, fossil fuels, you name it, we're using it up faster than a pack of teenagers at an all-you-can-eat buffet. And just like that buffet, there's not going to be much left for anyone else. This insatiable appetite for stuff is leading to shortages, conflicts, and economic instability. It's a recipe for disaster, and the worst part is we're all contributing to it. Every plastic bottle, every smartphone, every cheeseburger comes with an environmental price tag. And spoiler alert, it's not sustainable. Not. Chapter 4. Misinformation and disinformation. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, including this. Remember when your parents told you not to trust strangers on the internet? Well, it turns out they were right. The internet, for all its cat videos and online shopping, has also become a breeding ground for misinformation and disinformation. It's like a giant game of telephone, except instead of whispering secrets, people are spreading harmful lies and propaganda. This flood of false information erodes public trust, fuels social divisions, and makes it incredibly difficult to address any of the other problems on this list. After all, how can we even begin to address climate change if half the population thinks it's a hoax invented by Big Windmill? Chapter 5. Adverse Outcomes of AI Technologies. The robots are coming to take your job and maybe your privacy. Artificial intelligence. It's the future. It's also potentially the end of us all. Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but AI does come with its own set of risks and challenges. On the one hand, you've got the potential for job displacement. Robots are getting smarter, faster, and frankly, they don't need bathroom breaks. This means that entire industries could be automated, leaving millions of people unemployed. And then there are the ethical dilemmas. What happens when AI systems are used to make life or death decisions? Who's responsible when an algorithm goes rogue? And don't even get me started on the privacy implications. We're already handing over our data to tech companies like it's going out of style. Imagine what happens when AI gets its hands on that information. Chapter 6. Involuntary migration, when home is no longer an option. Imagine being forced to leave your home, not because you got a great job offer or found a charming fixer-upper in a new city, but because your country is ravaged by war, famine, or a climate disaster you had no part in creating. That's the reality for millions of people around the world who are being displaced from their homes due to factors beyond their control. This mass migration puts a strain on resources, fuels social tensions, and creates complex geopolitical challenges. It's a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions, and it's only going to get worse as the impacts of climate change intensify and conflicts continue to erupt. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. These are human beings whose lives have been uprooted. Remember the good old days when the biggest geopolitical threat was whether your favorite celebrity would win an Oscar? Yeah, those days are long gone. The world is becoming an increasingly volatile and dangerous place, with tensions rising between nations and the threat of conflict looming large. From territorial disputes to cyber attacks to good old-fashioned power struggles, there are plenty of things keeping diplomats up at night. And while all-out nuclear war might seem like something out of a cheesy 80s movie, the reality is that the stakes are incredibly high. One wrong move, one miscalculation could have devastating consequences for the entire planet. Chapter 8. Economic inequality. The rich get richer and everyone else gets a side hustle. Remember that game Monopoly? The one where you buy up properties, charge exorbitant rent, and eventually drive everyone else into bankruptcy? Well, it turns out that's not just a fun board game, it's basically our current economic reality. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening at an alarming rate. A tiny percentage of the population controls a disproportionate amount of wealth, while millions struggle to make ends meet. This economic inequality leads to social unrest, political instability, and a whole lot of resentment. It's a recipe for disaster, and it's not sustainable. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to live in a world where the only way to afford a decent apartment is to inherit it from your great-aunt Mildred. Chapter 9. Health crises, pandemics, superbugs, and the never-ending quest for affordable healthcare. Remember that time a global pandemic brought the world to a standstill? Yeah, fun times. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because that wasn't a one-off event. As we've learned the hard way, infectious diseases don't respect borders and they don't care about your political affiliation. And it's not just pandemics we have to worry about. Antimicrobial resistance is on the rise, meaning that the drugs we rely on to treat infections are becoming less effective. Add to that the ongoing challenges of providing access to affordable healthcare, and you've got a recipe for a global health crisis. Chapter 10. Technological disruption. The future is now, and it requires a software update. Technology, it's the gift that keeps on giving and taking. Sure, it's brought us countless conveniences from smartphones to self-driving cars, but it's also brought about massive disruptions to the job market, with automation threatening to displace millions of workers. The future of work is changing faster than ever before, and we need to adapt. This means investing in education and training programs to help people develop the skills they need to thrive in the digital age. It also means rethinking our social safety nets and finding ways to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to succeed in the new economy. So what now? Well, there you have it, the top 10 global challenges that will shape the next decade. I know, it's a lot to process. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed right now, that's okay. You're entitled to a brief existential crisis. Go ahead, we'll wait. Done? Good. Because the truth is, these challenges are daunting, but they're not insurmountable. With awareness and action, we can work towards solutions. Stay informed, stay engaged, and for goodness sake, recycle. Don't let apathy win. The future of our planet, and quite possibly the fate of humanity, depends on it. And on that cheery note, thank you for watching.